Hello everyone and welcome to our engineer interview, the first one of 2023, this week with Bethany Hall. Now, my name's Scott and I work at Primary Engineer. Before we start, I just wanted to say thank you very much for signing up to the competition this year. It's our 10th birthday and we can't wait to celebrate it with you all. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is the Leaders Award competition, where we ask the question, if you were an engineer, what would you do? Pupils from the ages of 3 to 19 anywhere in the UK can join, and every single person who takes part receives a graded certificate from a real-life engineer, just like the ones we interview. We then host public exhibitions and awards at the end of the school year, so we can't wait to see you all there. Now, we've already started receiving entries for the competition from classes all across the UK, so remember, once you've got yours finished, send them to us at Primary Engineer HQ. Now, as part of these interviews, we're going to be speaking with engineers who work on loads of different projects, all of them showing the wonderful, interesting and exciting things that happen when you work in engineering. Although we do host these interviews live, you can catch them on our YouTube channel afterwards. Now, our special guest speaker is going to start with a 10-minute presentation, all about making the future of flying better for the environment with GKN Aerospace, and then we will open up for questions. If you would like to ask a question, simply type it in the chat function on Teams. We unfortunately can't receive audio from the audience, so simply type your question in there. But for now, I'm going to hand over to our wonderful special guest, Bethany Hall.
Brilliant. Thank you, Scott. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone that's joined now and everyone that's watching online. Okay, so hi, everyone. As Scott mentioned, I'm Bethany and I work at GKN Aerospace. And GKN Aerospace, if you haven't heard of them, they're sort of a tier 1 aerospace supplier, and they pretty much supply a component on every single aircraft that you might fly on. As per the description of my talk, I'm going to tell you a bit about the fact that traveling is one of my favorite hobbies, and that's really why I love working as an aerospace engineer. And my mission as an aerospace engineer at the moment is to make aerospace sustainable, so to develop zero carbon hydrogen electric aircraft. And I'll tell you a little bit about the technology that we're working on, as well as my career path into engineering, and then I'm going to tell you my mission to change the world through engineering. So I thought I would start with some pictures to show you some of the fun that I get up to when I travel the world. So I think I've now currently been to about 42 countries, and I'm trying to tick off more every year. I've been to Guatemala in Central America, New Zealand, where I did my skydive in the middle here, lots around Europe. I've been to Iceland. So yeah, a hobby of mine is absolutely, I love to travel the world, explore new cultures and see beautiful, colourful scenery like you can see here. And in order to do that in the future, now that I'm conscious of the impact that that flying around the world has on the environment, I need to make aerospace sustainable. So that is why I do what I do today as an aerospace engineer. So I'm going to tell you a bit about my career so far, how I got into engineering and some of my highlights. So this is my sort of career timeline, my career on a page, and I'll talk you through some of the steps that I went through to get to where I am today. So if we focus in on the first one, so back when I was at school, so quite a few years ago now, I went to school in Kent, where I grew up, and I went to an all-girls school that specialised in engineering. But I didn't really know what engineering was all about until I decided to study an engineering diploma alongside my GCSEs. And I really chose to do that, one, because my dad was an engineer, two, because I quite liked maths and I liked problem solving, and also doing the engineering diploma meant that I got free periods in school where I could sit in a classroom with my friends and do some work or not do some work. But I definitely did some work. And one of the first things that I did when I was doing that engineering diploma, we got to do lots of things outside of school as well. We went to lectures and we went to the local technical college to do sort of hands-on tasks. But I went to a talk in 2009 about the Bloodhound supersonic car, which was a really exciting project that was trying to break the land speed world record for the fastest car. And one of the chief engineers of that project, he was talking about, you know, the complex systems that go into that and how they're working as a team to integrate it all together. And I really sat there, and this was the moment that I really remember that I thought, you know what, I would love to work on a project as cool as that, and work in a team of people, a dynamic project, and try and make something as fascinating as breaking a world record. So fast forward 10 years later, and I'm working at Rolls-Royce, which was my first job after university. And during my graduate scheme, I actually got the chance to work on what is now the world's fastest all-electric aircraft. So I worked on the project back in 2020, but last year it actually flew and broke the world record. It went over 300 miles an hour. And it was, yeah, it was a real pinch me moment to sort of reflect back and be like, oh yeah, this is really the kind of project that back in the day I really wanted to work on, something as dynamic and exciting. And I worked on, I was sort of a test and verification engineer, so I made sure that as we were building the aircraft, what we'd built was what we'd intended to build, and that as we were testing it, we were ticking off important requirements to make sure that the aircraft would fly safely. So now going back again to when I was at school, alongside my studies, me and some of my other classmates, we took part in something called the Green Power Challenge. And this is a national competition, and we were essentially given some batteries, and we had to build an all-electric racing car that competed against other schools in an endurance race. So the electric car had to go as far as possible within a time period. And we raced against other schools. I actually, in one of the qualifying rounds, I crashed it, but it didn't have any detrimental damage. So we were still able to compete in the final, and we actually came 19th in the country. And that was a really good project to sort of introduce me to start to finish of a design, taking it through and actually getting to see the product in fruition. And we raced it at Goodwood Racecourse, which was a really exciting day out. So then when I was after school, I went on to study a master's degree in electrical and electronic engineering at Imperial College in London. And during my studies, I didn't just do my sort of electrical engineering. I took part in lots of clubs and societies, including A Cappella Society. But another one that I took part in is something called Global Brigades. And I spent 2 summers, a short period of time in 2 summers, going out to a country called Honduras, which is in Central America, just below Mexico. And I did some engineering and public health volunteering, where we essentially designed and implemented clean water systems for rural communities. And this was really great to see that the engineering skills that I was learning at university could be applied to really improve people's lives. And that really furthered my interest in being an engineer. So July 2017, I graduated from university. I got to graduate at the Royal Albert Hall in London, which was pretty fancy and a great sort of day to be proud of all that we'd achieved throughout university. And then, so you'll see the nice yellow star at the bottom there, which was between university and going on to my first job at Rolls-Royce. I took a gap year, had a year out, I worked for a bit, and then I went traveling for 9 months. And I went to 12 countries during those 9 months and took a whopping 33 flights, which is pretty impressive thinking back to it. And I didn't just have fun. I didn't just go do skydives, etc. I spent a couple of months working in a sort of non-profit organization in Vietnam, working on implementing sort of innovative, exciting STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and maths outreach projects within the Vietnamese curriculum. So I got to benefit a lot from that during my school years. And I mean, the work that primary engineer do is absolutely that kind of stuff. So I was trying to implement that into the Vietnamese curriculum, which was an interesting break from doing nothing on my travels. So I then, after that, started my career in aerospace at Rolls-Royce. And I did a graduate scheme for a couple of years, and then I went on to do other projects. And what a real highlight of my time working at Rolls-Royce was a project called Fly Zero, which Fly Zero was a UK government funded project. So I was sort of I was seconded out from Rolls-Royce, and I joined a team of people, not just from Rolls-Royce, but from companies like Airbus, other aerospace companies around the UK. And this project ran from 2021 till 2022, so it's during the pandemic. So we ended up doing most of our work online through a computer screen, like the talk today. And it was a team of around 100 individuals who were brought together for 1 year to focus on how can the UK make zero carbon aircraft a reality. And we weren't just looking at the technical solutions, but we were also looking at the commercial side of things, the market scenarios. When will these aircraft be available? How many flights per day would we expect? We were looking at the economic side of things. What market value could we have from these new zero carbon aircraft? And then we also looked at things like jobs. So jobs that we already have in aerospace, would they stay the same? Would we need new skills, new training programs? And also looked at the sustainability side of things. So how would we recycle the different parts of the aircraft at the end of their life? So it was a really holistic study, and it was so much fun. And I made friends for life with, you might be able to see if you squint your eyes, the different squares of people in that picture there, who I worked with. Another thing that I was lucky to work on last year was I worked with something called Engineers Without Borders on a challenge called Reshaping Engineering. And this was sort of looking at how to embed sustainability into different engineering processes. And so this was a challenge I did with 4 other people around the world. So I was paired in a global team, and we had a month to look at how to do that. So that was another sort of extracurricular thing that I did that really showed me the true essence of what working in engineering can really be. So fast forward to now, and I'm now working at GKN Aerospace as a systems integration engineer on a project called H2 Gear, which is a hydrogen electric aircraft technology demonstrator program. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the technology that goes into that. So the hydrogen electric propulsion that we're working on, we're looking at 3 different scales of aircraft sizes. So we're looking at one that's approximately 20 passengers, all the way up to one that's around 100 passengers. So you can see those in the diagram here, and the fundamentals of how we're designing the system to be zero carbon is using something called fuel cells. So hydrogen fuel cells produce electrical power through something called electrolysis. So this is sort of electrochemical reaction. They require hydrogen and air, hydrogen as the fuel, and air to be inputted into the fuel cell. And then through electrolysis, they then create electrical power. So this electrical energy goes through, powers an electric motor. That electric motor then powers a fan. So it produces mechanical energy, which rotates the fan, and that fan then causes the aircraft to fly. It produces thrust, and the aircraft can fly. So that's how the propulsion system sort of works. And essentially, fuel cells are clean energy because they don't emit any carbon into the atmosphere, unlike a traditional gas turbine jet engine, where if you burn kerosene, which is the traditional aerospace fuel, through the combustion process, you emit carbon into the atmosphere. So fuel cells are a clean energy source because they don't emit carbon into the atmosphere, but they do, however, emit water vapor. And so there's a sort of a need for us to work with the water vapor and make sure that this doesn't have any harmful effects on the environment, but they don't emit any carbon into the atmosphere. So breaking that energy flow down then into maybe simpler terms, so we have the store of chemical energy in the hydrogen, that is then converted to electrical energy through electrolysis in the fuel cells, which is then converted to mechanical energy using the magnets and an electric motor, which then powers the aircraft. So going back to sort of my career and my journey, I just wanted to reflect on a career highlight that I've had, which was last year. I was named one of the top 50 women in engineering in the UK by the Women's Engineering Society, with the category Inventors and Innovators. And this was a really sort of proud moment for me. I got to take my dad, who's a civil engineer, along to the award ceremony in London, and I got to meet the other amazing women who have done some really fascinating work in engineering. So I'd encourage you to look up the full list and look at all the inventions and innovations that people have made to really push the world towards more sustainable solutions. And then finally, my mission to change the world through engineering. And this is really sort of broken up into 3 key themes that I think really sum up why engineering is a great career to have if you're passionate about changing the world. So the first one is that engineering has to be globally responsible. So through engineering, we can protect our planet and we can help make the world a better place and make society better for the people that live in it. Also, engineering is creative. Engineers are really the people that can make the big, the bold, and the really quite bizarre ideas happen. So you can come up with wacky ideas and then you can make them happen through engineering processes. And then also engineering must be inclusive. So we need all types of people to work in engineering because engineering impacts all types of people. So I'd really say that if you want to change the world, then engineering is absolutely for you. And we need all the different kinds of people and ideas in order to really make the world a better place. So my mission statement is to combat climate change and come out the other side with loads more wonderfully unique engineers, which could be you, who enjoy making the world a better place every day.
Well, Bethany, thank you so much for that. It was fascinating to see not only what you do now, but your journey to be able to get there. And I'm not sure if you've noticed, but we've had loads of questions in. So the first question is going to be this has come from quite a few people, but it is, what do you love about your job?
So I love, and maybe I didn't explain what being a systems integration engineer means, and this is really what I love about my job, is that my role now is I'm the person that is essentially integrating between all the technology pieces, and I've been described as my role is to be the technical glue in the project. And so my role, I'm a very people person, and my role is all about talking to the different people and connecting the dots and problem solving in order to make the overall aircraft system as efficient and optimized as possible. So I really get to think big picture and problem solve on a day-to-day basis, which is what I really love. So I've literally landed my dream job at the moment and I'm loving it.
Oh, it's a good position to be in.
Yeah.
So we've had another few questions come in. A few questions about what you were like at school. This one comes from Jarina at St Mary's, and they ask, what was your favourite project while you did at secondary school? And we've also had a few questions about your favourite subject.
Okay. So favourite project, more from the engineering perspective. When I was doing A-levels, I did another sort of external type project where we built what we called a stalker buggy, and it was essentially a little robot that followed you around.
That's cool.
And so I learned to code doing this project, and I essentially had different sensors, and I was making up algorithms of if you were closer, if the left sensor was closer to you, then you'd move around. And I thought that it was really fun, and we got to actually trial it out at this competition day where we had our buggy stalking us around the project hall. And my favorite subject, so a subject that I did for A-levels, I did maths, further maths, physics, and I also did art. And I really, really enjoyed continuing because I'm quite creative. I also did music at GCSE and drama, but I continued art to A-level, and I really enjoyed the downtime that I got during art away from my more technical subjects. But I did also really love maths as well. So
Oh,
I
well,
think
so you
they're
get,
quite similar though, maths and art, really.
yeah, and being an engineer, you still get to be creative as well
Yeah.
as practical. So we've got another few questions about what inspired you. So you did mention that your dad was a civil engineer. This question comes from Corpus Christi Primary School in Glasgow. Who or what inspired you to be an engineer?
Yeah, I had a really great engineering teacher, and she sort of really encouraged me. But I guess, yeah, the inspiration did come from that Bloodhound lecture, and sort of really thinking I really want to push the boundaries of what engineering can do. But yeah, I guess my dad again was quite an inspirational figure. He's just a really solid engineer, and I aspire to be like him. I did a work experience at his work once, and
Ah.
all of the other people in the team were telling me that every time they had a problem, they'd always go to my dad, and I was like, I want to be that person.
So we've still got some more questions rolling in, as you can see, and we've got a question here that's a little bit about the technology you use at work. So this question comes from Leo at St Mary's. Do you use AI science in your designs and engineering work?
Oh, I don't personally, but there is a lot of that coming about in the sort of manufacturing world. And yeah, it's definitely something that is becoming a lot more present. And in terms of engineering design, we're getting things like digital twins, where where you can essentially build and model and simulate the characteristics of the technology in a virtual world, which is really useful because then you don't have to spend the money on actually doing the hardware test. So yeah, but maybe it is in my day to day, and I just don't know it because
It's
it's
just
so
that
well
clever.
embedded. Yeah.
So we've now got some questions coming about what you currently do, but also how to become an engineer like you. So this is a question from Joelle at Auchinleck Primary. How do I become an engineer?
Well, there's literally unlimited ways in which you can become an engineer, I would say. There's You can do apprenticeships, which is a really good way to sort of get practical straight away. You can follow the academic route and go to university. There's lots of different engineering courses at university. But I would say just keep on doing the subjects that you really enjoy. I think to get into university, you probably need maths and science still. But yeah, if you're not if they're not still too much your strong suit, then maybe you can still get into it through the apprenticeship route.
But it looks like there's loads of different pathways.
Yeah,
And by the looks
yeah,
of things, there's so many different types of engineers out there that there's always
yeah,
options.
yeah.
So again, we've got some questions about what you're currently working on and what you have worked on. So this is two different questions. What is the most difficult project you've worked on, and what project are you working on just now?
Okay, so the most difficult project, I'd probably say, and it wasn't on my sort of career page, but between working on the world's fastest all electric aircraft, which is probably the coolest project so far,
Yeah.
because it's actually flown and it's like broken the world record. But between that and working on Fly Zero, which was also a great project, I led a team of electrical engineers on a project called Tempest at Rolls-Royce, and that was during 2020, so like really when everyone was in lockdown, and I was the engineering project manager for the team. And when I started, the team was about 8 or 9 engineers, and by the time I finished a year later and moved on to my next role, the team was over 30 engineers, and I was essentially leading that team. And it became very project management focused. And yeah, it was just quite a lot to take on straight after my graduate scheme, but I learned so much, and it was really fun, and the team were great, which made the job really easy, but it was really challenging, like a massive ramp up in workload quite quickly.
And there must be some pretty interesting people you got to work with as well.
Yeah, definitely. And especially when I had to go into like budget meetings and justifying why we needed like double the budget, etc. It was it was good.
Brilliant. So we've got another question in here from St Mary's, and this is about, so you mentioned last year that you were awarded one of the top 50 women in engineering. And this question from Jackie at St Mary's, have you seen more female engineers joining the industry since you started at Rolls-Royce and now GKN?
Yes, not enough though. I've definitely seen it. Yeah, I'd be worried if we weren't getting more, because when I first started at university in particular, the ratio of women on my course was quite low, and so me and some of my course mates actually, we set up a Women in Electrical Engineering Society, which allowed us to, everyone in the department, to like make friends with people in different years, so you didn't feel as lonely being like only a few of you. So yeah, it's definitely improving, but it needs to improve faster. And yeah, any young girls out there, like, please know that engineering is absolutely for you, and it can be a really fun career to have.
As it seems, I mean, there's world records involved, let alone everything else that you get to do. So this question comes in from Grace at Newark Primary. What mistakes have you made as an engineer, and do you learn from them? And I suppose this could be as broad as mistakes in engineering. Let's not pick on you too much.
Well, I think, yeah, fail fast and you learn fast and you improve quickly. So mistakes are quite a good thing in engineering. So it's hard to think of one in particular, but yeah, you get things wrong first time and then you keep on working to improve it. And all you can do is learn from how you've done it wrong and do it better the next time. So yeah, we all make mistakes in engineering, but we learn from them, and that makes, when we do get it right, it's more optimized than it would have been if you got it right in the first place.
Brilliant. So we've got a question here that was a bit about your love of travel. And forgive me for who asked it. I've forgotten to write down your name. But the question was, how do we make traveling all over the world better for the planet?
Well, by developing hydrogen electric aircraft, that's how. Yeah, it is possible to make zero carbon aircraft. That's what we're working on, and we see them being flying by the end of the decade is the goal. Wow. So that's a key way. But so aerospace is seen as harder to decarbonize than other forms of transport, so land-based forms of transport like trains and cars. We've already got electric cars a lot rolled out in society. So yeah, we just need to decarbonize the air travel methods, and it's happening, and it has to happen. So,
and it sounds that there's a lot of people working on it as well, so it's something that we can look forward to.
Yeah, and honestly, since I started my career, so I did a couple of internships at Rolls-Royce back in 2015. And when I joined the electric aircraft business there, it was just a sort of research group. And then when I went back as an engineer, as a graduate in 2018, it was suddenly a fully fledged business. And the amount of investment in these technologies and hydrogen in the last few years, especially after the Fly Zero project that I worked on, is just becoming much more invested in and spoken about. And yeah, it's really encouraging to see. So by the time you're all engineers, this stuff is going to be flying, and there's going to be so much sustainable technology out there. I'm sure of it.
Brilliant. So we've got time for just a couple more questions, and we've got a big one for you here. This one's from Holly at Oakwood Primary. What's the most important thing about being an engineer?
Oh, the most important thing about being an engineer is enjoying it and wanting to do good with the engineering. I think, like, be globally responsible. That's what I mentioned earlier. Like, use the engineering for good in society, and not just because it's fancy. And yeah, you need to have a good societal or impact on the planet in the engineering that you do. That's really important, I would say. And I think everyone kind of knows that now.
Yeah, and you mentioned it as well about there's so many people working towards using engineering to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And finally, we've got time for one last question. And this one comes, sorry, I don't see your name there, but the question is, if you weren't an engineer, what would you like your career to be?
Oh, I would like to be a full-time traveller, maybe a travel blogger.
You still get to be traveling around and seeing exciting things.
Yeah, something that also got me working with different people. I like creative things and community outreach work. My partner's a theatre director, and I see a lot
Oh,
of
wow.
parallels in creating theatre that gets people thinking about new ideas. And then actually in engineering, we try and make the engineers happen, the ideas happen. So something creative and that still gets me working with people and coming up with new ideas.
So still creativity. So we like that. Well, just look at the time. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and thank you for sending your questions in. There's been loads, so sorry we didn't get round to all of them, but hopefully you've learnt something today. Massive thank you as well for our special guest, Bethany, for helping to inspire all of the engineers in the making out there. Now, don't forget, everyone, this interview will be uploaded to YouTube, so feel free to share it with any other teachers, or if you want to rewatch it in full, then you can subscribe to the Primary Engineer YouTube channel. But now it is your turn to come up with your own engineering ideas. Remember and send them to us once you've finished, so we can get your certificate sent out to you, and we'll hopefully see you in person at the events at the end of the school year. But now, thank you especially to Bethany for joining us, and thank you to everyone out there. And remember, if you were an engineer, what would you do? Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck with the competition.